Hello and welcome back to Blackwatch Intel. My name is Crashy, and today we're going to be talking more about one-tricking. As I'm sure you've probably heard, there was a community member by the name of Josh Engen. I probably butchered that last name, but he has actually posted a very long clarification on the Blizzard's Overwatch team's kind of perspective on one-tricking. Now, this was the post that I've been saying we were going to get for a very long time, and to kind of jump back to one of the older videos or one of the older topics that I talked about, I specifically stated that I think that they've been slating and setting up for their kind of light introduction to how one-tricking should be dealt with, and I was predicting that they were going to essentially say that it's going to become an unacceptable type of behavior, and boy was I surprised. So essentially, to kind of recap, I'm probably going to read a couple of sections or maybe a subsection of this post, but I'll put it in the description if you haven't checked it out. I'm sure, like I said, by now most of y'all have probably heard about this, and if you haven't read it yourself, please do so. Stay informed and keep up to date with what's going on. But essentially, and we're going to dive into what all this means to me and try to digest it as much as possible. Essentially, Blizzard has, and the Overwatch team specifically, has taken the stance on trying to please everyone. And we've seen them do this in a couple different ways, one specifically being on the balance end of things, where they come out and say that, oh, we don't balance for the pro scene, but we're not balancing for the casual scene either. We're trying to balance for both. And the reality of that situation is that it's not possible. You actually can't balance for both. What you can do is you can make middle ground balance, and what that does is it kind of just pisses everyone off. So it's a really weird thing. Like, it's really clear to see that they make some weird balance choices where the pros are very clearly against it, and some of the casuals will be like partially against it, and maybe they don't feel like it's particularly the right set of balance or the right set of changes, and then they just start changing things for no reason, and that's their way of changing things for the sake of changing things and trying to please everyone, which ends up pleasing no one. So we've seen this kind of activity. Blizzard doesn't want to be the bad guy to any group or any minority. And so what they've come out and basically said is that there was a section of this, an emphasis on why it's not considered bad teamwork or poor teamwork, and why it's not, one-tricking itself is not a reportable offense. And then he goes to explain all of the ways that a one-trick could act and the actions that a one-trick could take, or a player could take rather, that would earn them a report, or that should be reported. So he kind of emphasizes a little bit, but I would argue that some of the things that he says specifically are rather subjective. So him saying, a player, not wanting to play the objective, or, not using good teamwork and not focusing on the objective, well, that could be, considered a poor teamwork report, and that should be reported. But isn't that a bit subjective to say that when, in my eyes, having an attack Torbjorn or having an attack Symmetra is in fact poor teamwork and, a lacking emphasis on the objective? If someone's playing a builder-like hero, or a hero that innately is not that good at pushing, or just, if the masses of the community, and let's say 65% of the community agrees that Torbjorn is not good on most maps on attack, so that becomes strategy, that becomes a part of the community-developed understanding and meta of the game, and that person still uses that hero in that scenario. Is that not almost the understood subjective view of playing the objective and or not playing the objective? So it gets weird. It gets weird to say that we need to judge the player by their actions when their actions that would fall in line with what he kind of lined up as, what we would report them for, is amazingly subjective. So what this is like I said, it's a one foot in the door type of thing. They want to please everybody by saying, oh, well, you should report them for this type of behavior, but then they go on to give us very subjective scenarios where essentially what they've done is said, you know what, one-tricking is not bannable, and, deal with it. And that's essentially what we have. And so, he goes on to say, players who are inaccurately submitting reports are clogging the system and yada yada yada. It's all just PR at this point, but I ultimately do think that the reality is this. When you create a system and you create an infrastructure for a competitive game like this, I mean, it's literally in quotations called the path to pro. And the way they market and try to sell this path to pro is that the theory, and this is super hypothetical because this will probably never happen, it may happen to one player in the next 5 years or 4 years or something. The theory is that a player could play solo queue and play the competitive ladder and rank up so much that they become noticed, and that the player becomes noticed and then joins an open team, and the open team is so good that they enter the contenders relegation, and then the open team gets a spot or earns a spot in contenders, and then the contenders team now has contract negotiations to become talent for the Overwatch League. I mean, that is literally what they have sold as the path to pro. And it's just funny to me that the competitive ladder should be an emulation of the pro scene to the best that it can. You know, a very unorganized emulation of the pro scene where we're playing the same game modes, playing the same maps, the same heroes, and yet we find ourselves in a situation where we have the developers of the game telling us that one-tricking is acceptable. And I've said this on Twitter, and I'll say it again here, and you can quote me on this till the end of time, and the day that it happens and I'm wrong, the first person to call me out on it, I promise you I will PayPal you $150. There will never ever, in the entirety of the Overwatch League, and for as long as Overwatch is a video game, there will never be a one-trick player signed into the Overwatch League. It will never happen. There will never be someone so good at one hero that a team just has to have them, because there will never be one hero so viable in all situations that it's okay to run them. And even if there was, let's say a Mercy one trick in this scenario, because Mercy's so broken, even if there was, balance could shake that up at any second. So again, we're emulating this pro scene, we're emulating and creating this path to pro, and we're playing a game that isn't even an emulation, a game that isn't even the same. And in the right that one-tricking is now acceptable. So I ultimately think that when you allow things like this, it hurts the competitive integrity of Overwatch. I think it creates a scenario where the game is a joke, and you have now given these players their playground. And you know, Blizzard, I said this on Twitter as well, Blizzard wants to be the parent, they want to keep us all in line and create something for us, but they want to be the best friend too. They want us to like them, but they want to enforce the rules. And you just can't have it both ways. You know, you have to develop with conviction, you have to take strong stances against the things that are going to hurt your game, and you have to be honest about it. And what they did today was they doubled down on the fact that they're not willing to take the responsibility to make the hard calls. And, you know, I don't think that one-tricking is the only issue. I've already had a couple of conversations on Twitter, people back and forth about how, you know, having too much unbalanced teams, having too many DPS, too many support mains on the same team, that is definitely an issue, but that's not necessarily the issue I'm talking about here. Because even if we did have balanced games, one of those people could be a one-trick. Multiple of those people could still be one-tricks. And again, that's just going to hurt the game. It's going to hurt specific instances where you're playing games and you have them, and it's going to hurt the overall integrity of the game. So that's my thoughts. I would love to hear yours in the comment section below. I think this is something that we're going to hear about and talk about for a very long time, because they've doubled down. And when big companies make decisions like this, when they come out with their stance, it doesn't often change. So one-tricks are here to stay. This is the way that I've digested it. It's the way that I think about it. And like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for checking out this video. Please do not leave without leaving a like and subscribe for future content. I appreciate it again, and I'll see you on the next video.
Do you feel your bones start shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel the fire inside of me?